The perfect target. I wasn't supposed to feel anything. From the moment I signed the contract, I knew exactly what I had to do: flirt, get close, seduce, and destroy him from the inside out. That was the deal. No strings, no guilt, just a job. His name was Nathaniel Cross, the CEO of one of the most ruthless corporations in New York, known for crushing small businesses and buying his way out of every scandal. A man with steel nerves, a cold stare, and $1 million smile that rarely reached his eyes. He was the perfect villain, and to me, the perfect target. I was hired by someone who hated him deeply, someone who wanted revenge so severe they were willing to pay me 6 figures just to get close to him, gather secrets, break his trust, and ruin him in every way imaginable. And I agreed. Why wouldn't I? I had nothing to lose. I was broke, alone, and furious at a world that had chewed me up and spat me out. So when they handed me the contract, I didn't hesitate. My name doesn't matter. To him, I would become Ava, the charming woman he'd meet by coincidence at an art gallery, the one who'd challenge his ego, pretend to hate everything about him, and slowly become the only person he couldn't ignore. I studied everything about him: his habits, his history, the way he looked at women like they were puzzles he could solve. I crafted my appearance to match his type down to the smallest detail. I knew what music he liked, what wine made him talk more, and what kind of pain he tried to hide behind those expensive suits. Everything was going exactly as planned, until he smiled at me like I mattered, until he looked at me with those gray-blue eyes that didn't just undress me, they saw through me. And that was when the plan began to crumble. I didn't know it then, but the moment I let him touch my hand without flinching, without acting, just feeling, that was the moment I signed my own emotional death sentence. I wasn't falling for him. I had already fallen. And when the day came to pull the final string, to expose his secrets, sabotage his empire, and vanish into the chaos, something in me broke. But it was too late, because Nathaniel Cross wasn't just falling for me too. He had secrets of his own, and one of them could destroy me. His eyes knew everything, even the lie I was living. He looked at me like he already knew. As I sat across from him in that quiet rooftop restaurant, a place where the skyline melted into golden hour and the wine cost more than my old apartment's rent, Nathaniel barely touched his food. He just watched me, studied me, like I was a code he couldn't crack or already had. I don't trust people easily, he said suddenly, breaking the silence, especially those who come into my life out of nowhere. I forced a smile, tilted my head, played my part. Then why did you invite me here? His eyes didn't blink. Because something about you feels dangerous. And I like dangerous. My stomach twisted. He was flirting, but it wasn't just that. His words were too sharp, his tone too calm, as if he was waiting for me to slip. And maybe I already had. I wasn't supposed to care that he hadn't smiled in 3 days. I wasn't supposed to notice the dark circles under his eyes, or how he paced in his office after phone calls with his estranged brother, or how he touched his mother's old bracelet like it was a lifeline. But I did. Worse, I cared. And caring was a death sentence in this game. That night, I opened the burner phone my employer gave me. The message was clear. You're getting too close. Pull the trigger. Pull the trigger. Which meant leak the internal files I had collected over weeks. The ones that could collapse his company in hours. I stared at the screen. My fingers hovered. But all I could think about was the moment earlier that day, when Nathaniel reached for my hand, gently, like it wasn't just flesh, but something he feared might vanish. And the worst part? I didn't pull away. The next morning, I did something reckless, something not in the script. I told him a story from my real life. It was a lie, but also the truth. I told him about my mother, how she raised me alone, how we barely made rent, how I learned to lie with a smile and survive with charm. I told him how I hated men like him growing up, men in power, men who never looked down. But Nathaniel, he didn't look down at all. He looked straight through me. Then he said quietly, "That sounds like someone who's been pretending for too long." My breath caught. He knew, or maybe he didn't, but he felt it. He felt the war inside me. And just like that, I knew if I didn't run now, I'd lose all control. Because I was falling, not into the job, not into the plan, but into him. The man I was sent to destroy was becoming the only person who saw who I really was beneath the lies. And the clock was ticking, because someone out there still wanted him gone. And if I didn't betray him soon, they would. The kiss that changed everything, and the spy who saw it. It wasn't supposed to happen. Not like this. Not on the rooftop of his penthouse. Not with the city lights flickering like stars we could actually touch. But it did. His hand brushed mine as he reached to pour me another glass of wine, and instead of pulling back, I turned. Slowly, deliberately, and he leaned in. No hesitation. Just the kind of kiss that makes time stutter, the kind that ruins every kiss before it. His lips were soft but sure, as if he'd been waiting. As if he knew this moment had been building with every secret glance, every half-truth I told. The city buzzed below us, but all I could hear was the thunder in my chest. I kissed him back. Not for the mission, not for the paycheck, but because in that moment, I forgot everything. I forgot the files hidden on my burner phone. I forgot the man who hired me. I even forgot my real name. All that existed was Nathaniel, and the dangerous hope blooming inside me. But then, a flash. I caught it out of the corner of my eye. A glint from the rooftop across the street. A lens. A camera. Someone was watching. My heart seized. I pulled away, my breath shaky, my smile fake. He didn't notice. He looked dazed, a little bit in love. God help us both. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept checking my burner phone, expecting another message. Another warning. It came at 2:11, Emma. We saw it. Don't forget who you work for, followed by an image. The kiss. Frozen. Framed. Me inches from his lips, eyes half closed, vulnerable, exposed. The next message made me go cold. You have 48 hours to deliver the files, or we'll take care of it another way. I couldn't breathe. I wanted to scream, to throw the phone across the room, but I didn't. I opened my laptop instead and looked at the folder labeled Confidential NK Holdings Internal. It had everything. Emails, passwords, confidential memos, proof of corporate deals his enemies could spin into crimes. If I sent it, it would be over for him. He'd lose his company, maybe even go to prison. If I didn't, I'd be next. The next day, I met Nathaniel like nothing had changed. He smiled when he saw me, that same soft, private smile that broke something in me. You look like you were somewhere else, he said. I was, I whispered. Then I lied again, because lying was easier than telling him the truth. That someone out there wanted to ruin him, and that someone was supposed to be me. But what I didn't know was that someone else was already inside the game. Someone I never expected. and they were closer to him than I ever was. The other woman in his life was me all along. I thought I was the only secret in his life. But I was wrong. So wrong. Because 2 nights later, while I was pretending to be the perfect distraction, hair curled just enough, lipstick the exact shade he once said, reminded him of wild berries, I stumbled into something I wasn't meant to see. The door left ajar, a voice that wasn't his, a name spoken too softly, and then laughter. Female. Familiar. My blood ran cold as I stepped into the hallway. His penthouse had always been silent, pristine, curated. But that night, it was humming with a warmth I didn't belong to. The woman was standing by the fireplace, her back to me. But I knew that coat. I knew the perfume, because it used to be mine. It was mine. And when she turned around, she looked exactly like me. Same hair, same eyes, same mole just beneath her left cheekbone. I wasn't looking at a stranger. I was looking at a copy. A clone. No, not a clone. A prototype. Because I was the copy. I left without a sound. Hands shaking. Mind spiraling. Everything suddenly made sense. The way he knew things I hadn't told him. The subtle tests, the odd questions that felt too tailored. I hadn't been seducing him. He'd been studying me. He already knew my real name, my past, even the man who hired me. Because the woman I'd seen, her name was Evelyn. And she was the first woman sent to destroy Nathaniel Kingsley. Except she never completed her mission. She fell in love and disappeared. And now I was her replacement. Back in my apartment, I tore apart my files. The documents, the briefings, the profiles, all of them carefully constructed lies. But tucked inside one folder, under pages I'd never dared open before, was a photo. Nathaniel, Evelyn, and me, in the background, years ago, smiling at someone off camera. He had been watching me long before I ever knew his name. My phone buzzed again that night. A new message. You're not the first. Don't make the same mistake. I stared at it, heart frozen, because now I didn't know which side was worse. The people who hired me, or the man I was falling in love with, who had been orchestrating everything from the beginning. And the worst part, I still couldn't stay away. He knew everything about me, but loved me. Anyway, I confronted him the next morning. Not because I was ready, but because I couldn't take another second of pretending. I stormed into his office unannounced. The same office where we'd shared coffees, glances, tension. The same office where I once felt powerful. Now I just felt like a fool. He looked up from his desk, unfazed, calm, controlled. He always was. Did you sleep well? He asked gently. That was it. I know who she is, I snapped. Evelyn, the woman from your past. The one who looks like me. He didn't blink. And, I repeated. You've been watching me. You knew who I was before I even introduced myself. This was never a coincidence. You let me seduce you knowing I was hired to destroy you. His eyes finally dropped. He exhaled slowly. Yes, that simple. Just yes. My chest caved. So all this entire time you were playing me too? He stood and walked around his desk, slowly, cautiously, like approaching a wild animal. No, he said. I wasn't playing. I shook my head. You let me get close. You let me fall for you. You let me believe this was real. His voice softened. Because it was, I froze. For the first time since this began, he looked broken. Not angry, not cold, just tired, and so sad. You think I didn't see it in your eyes? He said. That moment on the rooftop when you kissed me, you weren't acting. He stepped closer, and neither was I. I hated how my breath caught. I hated how part of me still wanted to believe him. But then he added, "You're not the first woman who was sent to seduce me, Ava. But you're the first one who didn't run." That did it. I turned to leave, heart racing, but his next words stopped me cold. "I know who hired you." Silence. "I've known since day one." I turned back. "Then why didn't you stop me?" "Because," he said, voice trembling, "part of me hoped you'd choose something different." I couldn't speak. Because I had chosen something different. I'd chosen him, and that terrified me more than anything. He handed me a small black envelope. No cameras, no tracking, just answers. Inside was a name, the man who hired me, and beneath that name, a second name, mine. My real one, the one I hadn't used in years. "How did you—" I whispered. He looked at me with something between grief and love. "I knew who you were before you knew who you were trying to be." And I broke. Right there. Not because I had failed my mission, but because I had lost myself. And somehow he had seen me through all of it, and still stood there. Not accusing, but waiting. He reached out. "You can still walk away," he said. "No tricks, no consequences." But I didn't take his hand, because in that moment I realized this wasn't about walking away. It was about finally choosing where I stood. I chose him, but they chose to kill us both. I didn't sleep that night. Not because of guilt, not because of fear, but because I'd finally made a choice that no longer served two masters. I chose Nathaniel, and in doing so, I betrayed the only people who knew my real name, my real past, and my worst sins. They would come for me, and for him. At 3:17 a.m., the message came. No more threats, no more cryptic orders. Just two words, "too late," and a photo. Our building, our rooftop. Taken minutes earlier. They were watching us. Even now. I woke Nathaniel immediately. His instincts were sharp. He didn't ask why, didn't try to comfort me. He saw the look in my eyes, and he knew. "They're moving early," I whispered. He nodded once. "I have a plan." Of course he did. He always did. The man who had been prepared for betrayal from the beginning was also prepared for war. In less than 5 minutes, he had secured 2 encrypted hard drives, cash, a burner phone, and what I could only describe as a small emergency passport kit. "You've done this before," I said, my voice shaking. He met my eyes. "Let's just say you're not the first person who's had to run because of me, but you might be the last." We left through the basement garage, the one reserved for his private collection and his escape. A black SUV waited, engine running, GPS disabled. As we pulled out into the city night, he placed a small earpiece in my hand. "If we get separated," he said, "you keep running." No looking back. I nodded. But I knew the truth. If we got separated, I wouldn't run. Not anymore. By sunrise, we reached a safe house Nathaniel had under a fake identity in Vermont. Cabin. Forest. No reception. And silence. For the first time in weeks, I felt it. Stillness. Not peace. The kind of stillness before a gunshot. We stayed hidden for 3 days. No lights. No contact. No plans beyond survival. He cooked. I watched the windows. He slept lightly. I didn't sleep at all. And on the fourth night, it happened. The silence broke. A branch snapped outside. Then another. I reached for the handgun he had taught me to load on day 2. He looked at me, lips pressed into a thin line. "We hold our ground," he said, "or we never stop running." The first shot came through the front window, then another closer. They weren't here to negotiate. They were here to erase us. We moved like choreography every corner of the cabin planned. But they had numbers. I heard boots, voices, flashlight beams cut through the darkness. My heart pounded. This was it. All for a mission I never finished. All for a man I wasn't supposed to love. All for a choice that wasn't in the contract. He grabbed my hand. "We don't die here," he whispered. "We expose them." "How?" He smiled, bitter but certain. "I've been recording everything. Even now." He pulled a pin from the inside of his jacket, a live transmitter. "It uploads directly. If we die, the truth doesn't." And just like that, I knew what we were fighting for. Not for each other, but for the truth. For every girl like me. For every pawn in someone else's war. And so we fought. 2 against many. We ran. We fired. We bled. But we made it out. Barely. 2 days later, the video surfaced. A compilation. The contracts. The missions. The women before me. The truth. It spread like fire. And suddenly, we weren't the hunted anymore. They were. Nathaniel disappeared off the grid. So did I. But every now and then, we find each other. A knock at a door in Paris. A note left in Venice. A coffee cup in Boston with a lipstick stain that doesn't belong to the server. He still carries the transmitter. And I still carry the memory of a kiss that changed everything. I wasn't a spy. I wasn't a seductress. I wasn't a weapon. I was the spark that burned their empire down. And I don't regret a damn thing.